It's official. Nicholas Latifi is leaving Williams this year after failing to perform for 3 years. But who will replace him? Will it be the prodigious Dutchman who scored at Monza, the American rising star, or an Italian veteran? Stay tuned as we break down all of the contenders for Latifi's seat. Plus, how is Brexit getting in the way of the prime candidate for the job? All of that and more is coming right up. First up, Latifi's attitude. It's always a good thing to keep a positive attitude in sport, but sometimes that positivity can go a little too far. Williams driver Nicholas Latifi was saying just weeks ago that he thought he still had a chance of retaining his seat next year. Latifi officially joined Formula One in 2020 with the help of his father's company, Sofina, and his personal sponsor, Lavazza Coffee. He was considered a paid driver and didn't go far in proving the label wrong. His highest finish in his debut season was P11, still outside the points, and last year, despite scoring 7 points, in many ways, his season was worse. Latifi became a very controversial figure in the final round of the season when his crash into a barrier triggered a safety car, which eventually gave Max Verstappen the championship over Lewis Hamilton. If you were a Mercedes fan, then he quickly became your least favorite driver. In fact, things got so bad that the Canadian had to hire bodyguards to respond to death threats. So far this year, he's failed to score and crashed out of 2 races, cementing his place as a pay driver. His refusal to take responsibility for his performance is even more worrying. He has blamed the car's balance, the downforce setup, and its lack of overtaking ability. And while the Williams is definitely near the back of the grid in terms of pace, his teammates have consistently been able to extract more from the car. This year, it's been Albon who has raced the wheels off the Williams. Why does Albon think loyalty is the key to F1? The fireworks that erupted over the summer break led to a very public feud between Alpine and Oscar Piastri when the Australian jumped ship to McLaren. Many of the team principals voiced support for Alpine and thought that Piastri broke the loyalty that young driver programs depend on. Not many drivers have come out with statements, but now Alex Albon has had his say. The young Brit, who has just signed a new contract with Williams, thinks that drivers have to show loyalty because Formula One is such a small business, and Albon would know. After 3 years in the Red Bull stable, he was shifted to their AlphaTauri AF Corsa team to compete in tour car racing and have a break from F1. But he clearly kept on the right side of many in the paddock because this year he was offered a seat with Williams and is now excited about what they can achieve together. Albon said that he is happy to finally have some stability in the sport and that now they can start planning for the future. So Oscar Piastri might want to take a leaf out of Albon's book and maintain relationships with team principals. You never know when they might come in handy. It has been revealed that Piastri will earn just $775,000 for his rookie season next year. Sure, it sounds like a lot for us normal people, but compared to the $32 million his teammate Lando Norris, it's peanuts. Nyck de Vries may have made a big mistake if he fails to perform, but that's the way the business works. Why is F1 a tricky business? Formula One is not for everyone. It's one thing to make it into the sport, but a completely different thing to have success. Unfortunately for Nicholas Latifi, he has been left behind by the rest of the grid and his teammates. For 2 years, he was partnered with Mr. Saturday George Russell, and while Russell was able to climb up to as high as P2 in his results, Latifi's highest finish was P7. This year has been much of the same, except now he's driving alongside Alex Albon, who is also leaving him in the dust. Earlier in the season, Latifi pointed the blame at the setup. Before the Grand Prix, he said, "I just don't feel my car is capable of doing what I see Albon's doing on the data." But it wasn't just Albon out-driving him. When Nyck de Vries stepped in for a sick Albon at the Italian Grand Prix, the Dutchman managed to finish in P9, earning him applause from all around the paddock. Latifi wasn't impressed though. He said that de Vries finished where the car was supposed to finish, but complained that he was suffering from no downforce and a car that was slow in corners. At some point, surely he has to start reflecting on whether or not it's the driver behind the wheel. At least, that was the conclusion that Williams reached. The team have confirmed that Latifi won't be driving with them next season. Now the only question is, who will replace him? Up next, which drivers are competing to replace Latifi? And how is one of their careers being stunted by Brexit? So don't go anywhere. Now, the likely contenders. Williams is a racing team with more than 45 years of history. Although their championship-winning days are long gone, recently they have served as a training ground for up-and-coming talent. The likes of Mark Webber, Nico Rosberg, Valtteri Bottas, and George Russell have all graduated from Williams and gone on to drive for top teams. That's why Williams has a decision to make. But who are the contenders for the position? First and foremost, we've got Nyck de Vries. In case you didn't see the Italian Grand Prix, here's a short recap. De Vries drove in a practice session on the Friday of the Grand Prix for Aston Martin. That was before Alex Albon fell ill with appendicitis and had to pull out at the last minute, so de Vries jumped into an entirely different car and went on to qualify in P13 and race impeccably to finish in P9. As Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff said, no one could have done better than de Vries did on his debut. It's hard to imagine mention he's not #1 on Williams' wish list. The second contender is Logan Sargeant, who you may not have heard of before. He is part of the Williams Academy and sits in 3rd place in the Formula 2 Championship. Plus, he's American, and at a time when F1 is rapidly expanding in the States, having an American in your lineup is a good move. A dark horse for the Williams spot is Mick Schumacher, who is looking to be losing his seat at Haas this year. But that would be a big gamble for Williams, while they have plenty of untapped talent on hand. Daniel Ricciardo, a late contender. It's hard to find a person in the paddock that has a bad word to say about Daniel Ricciardo. He has become a fan favorite over his more than a decade in Formula 1, and for good reason. But his career has fallen off a cliff recently, so could Williams be the answer to rebuild himself? The word to sum up Ricciardo's time at McLaren is potential. He has shown glimpses of the brilliance that he used to have at Red Bull, but nowhere near consistent enough. The Australian has repeatedly complained about the tricky setup of the McLaren, and while he may be right, he's out of time to get a handle on it. McLaren officially shortened his contract to the end of this year with a reported payout of $14 million. Rumors have been flying about where he might be headed next, but Ricciardo is exploring every option for the future, which includes retirement. He also said that he wouldn't rule out taking a step back into the position of a reserve driver, and there is chatter that Mercedes could consider him for that role. But former world champion Jenson Button has urged the Australian to consider joining a team like Williams to reduce the pressure and get him back in the right mental space. That way, he would stay in Formula 1 and potentially be in a position to lead a team rather than jostling with a teammate for points. Ricciardo will have to be quick if he wants to join Williams, though, as Nyck de Vries looks primed and ready to take the seat. Let's talk about Brexit getting in the way of de Vries. Nyck de Vries may have debuted for Williams in Monza, but his normal role is as a reserve driver for Mercedes. So far, he has been able to carry out his duties as usual, but his Dutch passport has recently become an issue for Williams. De Vries has been denied the opportunity to practice on the simulator at Williams because of Brexit restrictions. Before the UK left the EU, there was more leniency with Europeans working in the country, but now restrictions are much harsher. That means that de Vries was sent packing and will likely have to wait until next year to get practice in at Williams HQ. Could de Vries' career be disrupted because he doesn't have the right passport? That doesn't sound fair. Do you think de Vries will take Latifi's position at Williams, or will it be someone else? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in the next one.